So we're going to take this 6-foot garland that's on a garland strip with no glue dots, and we're going to go ahead and use kind of a wrapping tying method. It takes a little bit more effort, but it's going to come together a little bit bulkier, and it's going to stay together without moving. So if you're afraid of, like if you're outside and it's windy, or you're going to be assembling it and it's not pushed up against a wall, this is a nice way to do it. And it does give you a little bit more freedom with shape and the way that it goes together. So we're going to turn this into a 4-foot garland. So I'm just going to start pulling balloons off, and then I will show you what the next step is. So normally for this method I wouldn't inflate all of the balloons first, but since we were repurposing another one, they're already inflated and tied. But normally you're going to want to inflate your balloons, and the double stuff are going to need a hand pump or an air compressor or something that has about 100 psi. We haven't tested all of the retail inflators on the market. We're still trying some different ones just to see if there's one that we can recommend that's a low cost. Unfortunately, the ones that tend to work are higher cost, or we use a tool air compressor, so that also helps. We do have some hacks on how to use a hand pump and one of the cheaper air compressors, and so we'll link that video below. But I'm going to inflate one balloon. Inflate the other. And then for the double stuffed balloons, actually for any of them, if you wrap them around each other just once, it's going to seal them off, which is going to make them much easier to tie. And then you actually are just going to use the insides of the balloon. You just want to tie the inside tails. It is going to make it so much easier to tie it if you do it that way. And it actually will give you a little more stretch and room when we start wrapping these around each other. So today we're going to do kind of a mixed color lot. So instead of pairing all of the buttercream together, I've done, this is buttercream and latte, and then I'll do, you know, a latte and a buff. So just kind of do random pairings. If you have a couple that you've tied the same color together, or you get to the end and you only have, you know, 2 of a single color, it's fine, because once you start wrapping them, they're going to kind of blend. The 16-inch balloons you want to set aside if you want to have a thicker build. If you want it to be just kind of longer and not really skinny but leaner, you can tie one of these to your 11-inch and you can work them into the garland. You'll add a little bit of fullness, but it just has kind of a different feel to it. So that is just a personal preference. So since I have already pre-inflated and tied all of these, I'm just going to go through, grab the insides and tie them together. My 5-inch balloons, you can do this at the end as well, or you can start at the beginning. If you're going to wrap your 5-inch balloons in with ribbon, I recommend tying them in clusters of 3. So you're going to tie 2 together and then just tie the last one. Again, trying to grab the insides of the tails. And this is probably where the more time-consuming aspect of it comes into play, is sort of tying all these together. But once you start assembling it, it actually goes quite quickly. So I've tried to make it so all the nubs are at the back, so when we do go to add this in later, it's super easy. So we're going to tie these up, and we're going to get all of these ready, and then we'll get started on the next part. So now that I have all of my 11-inch balloons put together, I'm going to start putting them into mini clusters. So I'm going to take, let's try this. A set of 2 and a set of 2. You're just going to crisscross them like that, and then literally just wrap them around like once or twice. So there's a cluster. And trying to kind of mix and match my colors. Make sure, like so. The nice thing about the balloon garlands and the double stuff especially, you can definitely make these days before your event. You do not have to do it the day before or the day of. So as kind of a stress-free thing, These we've had hanging in our shop for weeks on end. So double stuff have a longer life, single layer are going to have just a slightly shorter life. If they're outdoors, that's going to obviously affect that. But you know, you can have one outdoors all day at an event and you should be fine dependent on the weather. All right, so we have all of our clusters together. You can use fishing line for this or just curling ribbon. I'm using cream so you won't be able to see it. Fishing line is clear, so if you have any gaps, it's kind of nice because you're definitely not going to see it. So this is super easy. You're just going to take your first cluster. You are going to put the ribbon in and just tie a little knot. So basically we're just securing the first part down. This is the only knot you really are going to have to make. So we've secured that. Then you're going to take your next cluster. You're just going to fit the balloons together like so, and then you're going to take the ribbon and wrap it away from you and do it like a figure 8. And you can give it a little pull if you want these tighter together, you don't want them loose. And then you're going to wrap it back in a figure 8 like so. And then that's it. We'll grab the next one. You can kind of pay attention to how, if you're doing mixed groupings, how you kind of want the colors to come together. So you can sort of like turn it. And again, you're going to cross that over that center part like that. And then you just want to figure 8. You can go around 3 balloons. You can go around 2 balloons. Just wrap it around a couple times to make sure it's nice and secure. So I'm kind of taking my thumb and pushing this down just because I wanted it in there a little bit more snug. Wrapping that around, pulling it out. Just gonna push that in to fill in that gap. This is kind of where you can start to take creative license because, you know, if you really wanted to, you could also add another 4-foot layer and you could attach it on this way and run it backwards, and that way you're going to kind of end up with a like super thick build. That's kind of how you end up doing the backdrop walls, which we'll do another video on later, but we're just going to keep going this way because at the end we're going to add our 16-inch balloons, and that's going to add some of that fullness that we're looking for. Voila! That part is done. So before we add the 5-inch balloons, we want to hang it on the wall. It just makes it easier to see where to place them. Same thing with the 16. We're going to add those at the end. In my opinion, it just makes it easier to figure out exactly where you want it and how it's going to look. So I'm going to hang this one kind of low. So alright, so I have a loop tied. Easy as that. I'm using, I don't know if I mentioned that, I'm using command hooks. We have them all over our wall in here. It's kind of a great simple way of hanging these. Some walls don't cooperate with them, so I think more textured walls, if you have plaster, might not work. In which case, a picture nail is one way. There's kind of just anything that you can hang it from. Anything that you might hang a picture from would work. All right. So, okay, so now we're going to start putting some 16-inch balloons on here. I'm going to tie this onto my 16-inch balloon because this is how we're going to add these in a minute. I like the idea of putting one in here. And when you're doing this, I would try to be a little bit gentle so that you don't pull it off of the command hooks. I would actually also recommend hanging the command hooks above where you're hanging it because this one is sort of right behind, right next to it. It tends to want to pull away a little bit more readily. I like to try to hang it down because the balloon garland is not quite as fickle. So again, you're just going to pull this in here, take this ribbon, you're just going to figure 8 it around a couple of the balloons, like so. And then you can either just cut that string off or just tuck it in there behind. Kind of the beauty of doing it this way too is if you decided you didn't like where this was, you can move it. If you're using glue dots for any part of this, glue dots are like a semi-permanent solution, because if you start moving them after you've used glue dots, they will pop. So for the 16-inch balloons, when you figure eight them in, you're going to want to go around at least 3 or 4 times. It's a little bit different when you are assembling this part of the garland, just because that's going to make it more secure. It's going to make them stick and not accidentally get pulled out. So if you have chosen colors where we do not have them in 16-inch sizes, either because we're out due to latex shortages or because they're just simply not manufactured in that size, what I would do in this step is I would save, let's see, 2, 4, 6. I would save 6 11-inch balloons, because you would get 6 extra ones. If we have to deduct a 16-inch balloon, we're going to send you 2 11-inch in place of it. So I would take pairs or triplets and I would tie them together. I would save those for the very end, and then I would start adding them in the same way that we're adding the 16-inch balloons. So to get the same look, you're just going to keep out some of your 11-inch balloons and do the same kind of a pattern here. Now we're going to move on to the 5-inch balloons. I've tied some of them together in clusters, so we're going to start with these 3s, these sets of 3 here. We're just going to start adding them in, kind of throughout, maybe like right in there. And again, for this step, you can definitely get some glue dots and use those. Otherwise, you can just take ribbon like this, tie it around, and we're going to do the same thing that we did with the 16-inch balloons. Again, one thing to note with the glue dots, it's a little bit easier and faster than using this method, but once you have stuck them, they're stuck. They're not moving. So this does give you a little bit of freedom. If you put the balloons on, you don't like where they are, you can pull them out. So again, we'll just start here, stick that ribbon in, like so, and then I'm actually going to come back through the 5-inch balloons and loop around them after I've looped one of the 11-inch. Come back in, and then actually tuck that up. I have a couple of paired 5-inch balloons I'm going to put in. I wouldn't cluster all of them in 3s at the very beginning, just in case. It gives you, again, it's more of having flexibility to fill in where you need to fill in. That's why I generally don't do the 5-inch balloons until the very end when I'm doing, when I'm building them from the beginning. It's like here I can go ahead and just fill in right there. Same thing with the sets of 2. I'm just going to wrap around an 11-inch, and then I'm going to go around that 5-inch balloon, set, and come back down and around. Like that. And you get a nice little cluster in there. Alright, so this is the finished look using the wrapping and the tying method, and this is a 4-foot garland. For this, we've used 24 11-inch balloons, we've used 20 5-inch balloons, and we've used 3 16-inch balloons. The 16-inch balloons in this one are not adding any length, they are just adding some kind of bulk. So again, if you want to use colors that don't come in the 16-inch size, then you're just going to want to add, you would add 2, 4, 6. So if you wanted to complete this look, you would then need 30 11-inch balloons. So again, it just kind of depends on how you want your build to come together. But it's super easy and anybody can do it. So hopefully this helped you guys out